So, continuing my videos about the foundation of all knowledge in Proclus, I want to talk about how the one of the soul, the unity of the soul, this drive of ours to unite ourselves, to simplify ourselves as an I, can actually give us any kind of knowledge, right? Because it isn't a proposition, it isn't a self-evident truth, it's just this drive. So how can a drive be the basis of knowledge? And I want to talk now in this video about how this is the basis for the innate knowledge that we have of gods, right? So there was a debate between two Neoplatonic philosophers, predecessors of Proclus, Porphyry and Iamblichus, where Porphyry asked many questions about how ritual practice and prayer work, and he started by saying, I'll concede that there are gods. And already with this starting point, Iamblichus was unhappy. Iamblichus answered, that is not at all the right way to put the question. That is not at all, because he insisted that we have an innate knowledge of the gods, a knowledge of the gods that is part of who we are, that is part of our desire for the good, this innate desire for unity that we have. And so I want to talk about how this innate desire for unity can actually be a knowledge of gods, and also a knowledge, a species of knowledge. Like, how can it be the basis for us, for Proclus, then to build a science? So the answer, as far as I can tell, goes back to starting from self-evident truths. Now, we saw that for Proclus and other Neoplatonists who have similar theories about the origin of all things in unity, a self-evident truth can't be the basis of science. The origin of everything can't be known in a self-evident truth because self-evidence requires duality. And it requires duality in unity, and therefore it can't explain unity. Its unity has to come from somewhere else. And we find a basis for knowing unity in our own striving for unity, which is a striving that strives after unity even though we have no concept or image or name for it, really. And so what happens when we now approach our self-evident truths? Things like the principle of non-contradiction, or the principle of identity, or who knows, super general concepts like sameness and difference and potentiality and actuality. What happens when we approach them with this knowledge that none of them can actually be fundamental? Well, that means that this knowledge of what is truly fundamental, of unity, allows us to analyze the universals that we know in self-evident truths. It allows us, for instance, to analyze the presence of things which on its own would appear to be something that makes itself known and is simple, this making itself known that there is something and not nothing. We can analyze this self-evidence into a unity that grounds it, and the universal. So behind the presence of being that makes itself known, what Parmenides expresses when he says that being is, and that it is the same to be and to think, or to have noesis, to have this kind of self-evident insight. We can analyze this and see that behind this, grounding this, there has to be a unity. And the way that our desire, our striving after unity is what makes us say, I am this and I am that. Behind that universal, there also has to be an I. However, that is universal. Presence is fully constituted. It's not like us who we are making ourselves in time. We are identifying ourselves with this and disidentifying ourselves with that. We're owning this and shoving that away. No, presence, being, the law of non-contradiction, identity, diversity, number, all these basic universal things are fully constituted. So their I's, their unities, has to be different from the I and unity that we have. It has to be an I or a unity that is itself fully constituted. Whereas our eye is in some sense built by our actions. It's a power that we have to synthesize ourselves. Those must be eyes that are, as it were, ready-made. They're complete. They are true persons. We are trying to make ourselves into people, but they are persons in their own right, right? They're like what Sartre said about existentialism, right? That existence is prior to essence. Right? So he had this idea that this was true of human beings, that whatever we are, we have freely chosen to be. Now for Proclus, that's not true. We have an essence that we can either realize or fail to realize as rational souls. But for Proclus, it is true about the gods, about these fully constituted individualities that are prior and that ground the universals. They are, as it were, eyes, existences that are independent of what they do, and so they are free to choose what they do. And so they freely ground these universals. So our knowledge of unity lets us see in every universal truth, a God, a free and fully constituted individuality that sustains that universal. And so that is one beginning of how our knowledge of unity is a basis for knowledge in a broader sense. And in this video, I connected the knowledge of unity with noesis, with our ability to have these, to grasp self-evident truths about universal things. In the next, we're going to introduce another capacity that we have, which is the capacity to infer one truth from other truths. And we'll see how then noesis and our unity together with our capacity for inference then lets us do dialectic, which is the greatest science for